This is a setup analysis for the McLaren 720S at Kansai GP circuit under these racing conditions. Let's do this. Welcome back to the 27. Let's continue our conversation about the 720S. A couple of videos ago, we discussed Silverstone, where we talked about tire heat and management, so check that out if you haven't. Something in the back of my mind told me to quickly get back into the McLaren, and I don't know why. I guess I wanted to see how it behaved in a different environment right away, like Kansai circuit, which obviously is a figure 8 pattern, so it has its own unique setup characteristics. What I found interesting was that because Kansai has the same number of left-hand corners and right-hand corners, we had to manage the tire heat delta equally on both sides of the car as best we could. But we also observed something interesting in that even though Kansai has the same amount of corners, they are in total different. It was kind of like setting up two cars here. On a normal clockwise or counterclockwise track, you might have a tire that is simply underworked, and that's just the way it is, nothing you can do about it. At Kansai, you'd think that a symmetrical setup would work well here, and it probably could, but when you're looking to do setups to the degree that we do on this channel, we had to basically set up a left-hand turn car and a right-hand turn car, balancing the temperature and wear deltas for both sides, if that makes any sense. But our tools are limited. The ARBs affect the left and right side equally, the differentials affect the drive wheels equally, the toe, and so on and so forth. That cuts down our tuning options. But before we get into the changes, I wanted to mention the importance of testing the cars in traffic. Cars do in fact behave differently, and being able to start a race and find an issue with the car that did not reveal itself in solo testing is a huge advantage. It's like having a time machine, and who wouldn't want a time machine? Furthermore, with this setup series, I feature a last to first challenge for a reason, and it's not because I want to showcase my particular driving skills. The focus is really on the car. In a 7-minute video, I am putting the McLaren in a variety of challenging circumstances that you may face as well in the future to see how the car holds up. If you want to see how she responds side by side through the S's, if you want to see how the car responds to side by side pass at 130R, if you dare, how she responds to nibbling too much curb at the Casio triangle, these are the things you could focus on. The last to first challenge is also a good way to practice racecraft against AI. You can figure out where they're vulnerable and where they are solid. You can work out where on the track you can't really push for a pass and where the car can hold. After that, it's like lining up targets in a row. So, for example, if you're in second place at the start of the final lap, you should already have in your mind the best place to safely make that final pass, and then take the opportunity leading up to that zone to cool your tires and get your car in perfect position to make that pass for the win. That being said, there are also times where you really have to push and make passes in uncomfortable situations. Call it patient aggression. We all come across this a lot every race. You never know when you'll have to make a pass. You never know where and what circumstances. You just have to be ready for it, and the best way to prepare is to make sure the car is ready for it as well. Now, for the setup particulars, in typical fashion, I cambered and pressured the tires appropriately for the track state. Setting the brakes was interesting. I set them relatively far forward, and I do this a lot with a lot of cars, and if you take them into time trial, it's going to seem like too much, or if you're solo driving. The reason being is mainly turn 1 and turn 2. Whenever you add elevation changes to the mix, the car reacts differently because the loads on the tires are changing. In this case, we move them forward simply so the rears don't lock up when they're unloading, like when they're cresting a hill, which could be catastrophic when adding cornering inputs like you do when trail braking. It's still a trick to trail brake there anyway. The pressure is quite low as well. This is preference. I have a heavy foot, admittedly, so this can be changed, obviously, but this and the forward bias means the car, what I'm trying to do here is the car won't rotate much if you need to lightly tap the brakes during cornering. We have a wheel to help turn the car. You all would also be prime examples of drivers who are used to the AMS tewiness of how the cars rotate. People like brake bias rotation. People like differential rotation. I might be inclined to use these techniques for time trial for sure. But if you don't need to brake a tire free to rotate, you really shouldn't. It adds unnecessary wear and heat. That being said, the fact that I'm tuning this out of the car to a large degree does not mean it still can't be used as a technique. It just wouldn't necessarily be the natural state of affairs. You'd have more control in manipulating it to occur when you want it to happen. We altered the suspension, making the front spring stiffer for less bite on corner entry. We balanced the ARBs for balance through mid-corner, and then we softened the rear springs to help with acceleration. We also added a touch more rake. This was to help rotate the car during the S's where I felt it was a bit understeering. The dampers by default are symmetrical. As I said before, we were doing our best to treat this as a left side and right side setup, and the dampers were the best way to achieve those two different goals. So you can see that the method is a lot different for each side. Finally, we locked up the differential a little bit. It's suitable for this track now. The defaults are kind of open, but you want to squeeze out as much power and add the stability of coast when you can. And that's pretty much it, the McLaren 720S at Kansai. I wanted to mention that the Discord is open for anyone who wants to join. I have already posted a 1113 update that you won't see on the channel for a few weeks. It's just way too easy for me to update there, so I encourage you to join. Details are in the description. We are going to be jumping back into the GT1s for next week on a track that I wish I had given more thought because it's been giving me nightmares for the past few days. In any event, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.